This is our very first interview for this channel, and we have none other than Lindsay Schoolcraft from Cradle of Filth. I know I'm going to say it wrong, but she's also got a side project, Antiqva.
Done. Beautiful. You got it.
Okay, awesome, cool. I knew I was going to say it wrong, but I mean, she's getting that project up and going, doing all the orchestral arrangements. It should be something cool to check out. Her buddy Zen does the harsh vocals for that. Am I correct?
And the lyrics and the artwork.
And the artwork, yeah. There's also members from all sorts of different bands. I know you guys have your bassist from Suspiria.
And yeah, Abyssic.
Yeah, there's members from all kinds of different bands. So check that out. She hopes to get the album started working on, but she's a busy woman.
I am.
You just got back from Germany with Cradle of Filth in Europe. How was that?
It was really good, thanks. I spent a lot of time in Hamburg with my friend there, and I had a great time. It was really cool. The German festivals were really fantastic. We had a great time with Summer Breeze, Bloodstock, Wacken. It was great. And it's just, getting back home and, I'm only getting into the swing of things now, and now I got to fly out for Australia on Saturday, but it is what it is.
Yeah, those Cruelty and the Beast shows, I seen that was coming up. That's actually one of my favorite Cradle albums, so I'm actually bummed I don't live in Australia to go check that out. But you mentioned all those great festivals. There's one story I want to bring up. You stated that when you were playing in Bloodstock, you guys had a pyro show, and a bug got singed and landed on your keyboard, and you said it always happens to the vegan.
Yeah, I was just kind of up on stage feeling epic and, throwing my hands in the air every time the fire went off. And then I'm just there's one part I wasn't playing the keys and the fire went off. And then all of a sudden there's just this singed giant, I guess it was a mayfly, just flew and landed on my keyboard. And I'm just oh, come on. Out of all people it happens to. So it was just aw. And I just he was dead. He was singed. I just brushed it off and kept going.
Well, I imagine for some of the other guys like Danny or Richard, they're walking around, they wouldn't notice it. Maybe Martin would if it landed on his drums, but...
Well, no, he has that screen all the time. He has
that
sound
too.
So he's that's his bug screen.
Fate had to pick you, I guess. But we did want to go ahead and touch on that. We found that story quite humorous where you were it always happens to the vegan. But we do want to go ahead and touch on something that's important to you right now, and that's your debut solo album, Martyr. That's going to be coming out October 7th. Very exciting details. Now, you've released solo stuff in the past, but not a full album. Is this full album something you've actually wanted to do for a while, or was this something hey, I'm going to start this on the side, just, I miss solo work?
Yeah, what it is a lot of people kind of don't remember is I was a solo artist before I joined Cradle of Filth. So I had an EP out, and then Cradle of Filth happened, and around the heavy duty work that was Cradle of Filth, especially being included on Hammer of the Witches and albums after, is I struggled to kind of find time to make releases. So I did a few singles, and then I said at the end of 2015, I'm you know what? I need to do a full length. This is important to me. And then funny enough, Rocky contacted me around the time I started demoing a bunch of songs, and it just happened so fluently. It was weird. It was just crazy. So yeah, it was something that I wanted to do, and then Rocky was just the cherry on top.
Right, absolutely. We're going to get to Rocky Gray also in that, being that he is the former drummer for Evanescence, who you've mentioned is one of your favorite bands.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see.
yeah, I can see the Fallen poster behind you. How was that working with him? Was that just a mind-blowing experience?
It was. He is honestly such a cool dude. He's so chill. He's so patient. He's so funny. He's so experienced. He just knows so much on another level that I am not aware of. He's had such an interesting life. And I really appreciated studying under him and working with him. And he was really easy to work with. He's the the peanut butter and jelly to my, the peanut butter to my jam kind of thing. I don't know how to do guitars and drums, but he just went with it. And I think we made a great team.
Right. Absolutely. A lot of the stuff I've heard sounds so great. You got a cover of The Cure's Lullaby on that album.
Yeah, I had
To end
to.
the album is actually the closing track, and it's a great cover. But my question is, what made you want to cover that song in particular?
It was really weird. I had like a list of like 10 covers that I wanted to do for the longest time. And, you know, my roommate, who's also my drummer, his name's Scott. He always he's like, oh, we should do Lullaby by The Cure. I'm like, that is such a cool idea. So it was like number one on my covers list. And then when I was talking with Rocky, he's like, let's work on a cover together. I was like, well, what do you think? And then he mentioned it. And I was like, dude, that's like number one on my list. He's like, okay, it's decided. And then we just did it.
That's awesome. I remember the first time I heard that song, and I heard the Cure's version, and I heard that line, "The Spider-Man is having me for dinner tonight," and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"Whoa!" You know,
Yeah, it's a
that's
creepy
an
tune.
incredible lyric. It's very
Yeah,
dark, very creepy, but it's very cool as well.
that's what I love
Also,
about The Cure.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Cure, great band, and I think they're actually getting to where they're an underrated band. A lot of people don't listen to them anymore. You know, like I've
Yeah,
came across some people. I mentioned the Cure, and they're like, "Who?" I'm
which
like,
is just
"You know,
heartbreaking.
it's Friday. I'm in love, and boys don't cry, and all that." And they're like, "Okay." I'm like, "Oh
Uh,
my god, these people."
yeah.
So, but you've also released some of your own songs. "See the Light," which features your buddies in,
Hmm.
who we talked about, and "Where I Fall" was released on Monday. We actually
Yes.
shared that. We love that song. It's
Thank
great.
you.
Can you explain the backstory or meaning behind both of those tracks?
Yeah, absolutely. See the Light was a song I was working on in 2016 when unfortunately Trump went into power. And I was just looking at the political climate and I'm like, this is just so wrong. So I started writing a song about this tyrant who's in power who just doesn't do the right thing and doesn't care about how it affects other people. And, you know, it does tie into my beliefs with like veganism. And then as I was writing it, I was like, you know, sometimes when you want to say something loud, you got to scream it. And I started writing guttural parts. And I'm like, this Zen should be part of this. So that's kind of
Right.
how See the Light came to be. It was really cool and organic. And then Where I Fall was a track that actually Rocky sent to me that was entirely completed. I mean, I didn't do much other than cut out a few parts, add a few parts, and then Spencer, my orchestrator, did that epic ending. And that song was you know, back in 2016, I went through a lot in my life. You know, came out on top. But it was really interesting like that. I just vibed out that track and that the lines for that song came so naturally. And it talks about how it's okay to kind of withdraw when you're going through something and spend time with yourself and practice self-care and think about it. And that's what Where I Fall is about, because I do go through a lot doing what I do for a living, and the people I interact with. And sometimes I just need to, like, you know, some people are like, oh, hey, come out tonight, come out and hang out, you know, and I'd be like, nah, I'm gonna stay inside and just be with myself and ask myself why I'm not okay and ask myself what I want. And I don't think enough people do that in life. And that's why their mental health suffers so badly. So that's why I wrote Where I Fall, because I just wanted people to kind of know about, you know, that place that I go to, but also to know that like it's okay to tell people no. And I'm very fortunate. The people in my life, the circle I have, they get it when I disappear. They respect that. But you know, in the beginning, some people don't understand that and they're super needy, and then they're like, why do you hate me? And I'm like, when did I say I hated you? I just needed 2 days
Right.
to myself, you know. So it's an adjustment, but any healthy decision is always like hard for the unhealthy people around you to not understand, you know.
Right, absolutely. And sometimes you just need that time to yourself. I mean, you with scheduling your Cradle of Filth gigs, and you got your solo album coming out, and all of the stuff with Antiqva or Antiqua. I'm still not sure how to say it.
You're saying it
So
right. Don't worry about it.
I'm just gonna do it both ways. So, but with all of that, you've got to take time for yourself, or you'll just go absolutely crazy in your own mind. So,
Yeah.
very powerful lyrics as well. Now, as we mentioned before, this wasn't your first solo album, or I'm sorry, solo music released. First solo album for sure, but you've released songs through Bandcamp and SoundCloud. One of those being a cover of Nymphetamine, which is Cradle of
Mm.
Filth. When you released that, did you have any idea in your mind that shortly after you would be on stage with Cradle of Filth?
Well, actually, I worked on it and released it the summer after I worked for Cradle of Filth for those first few
Okay.
shows. Well, I say few shows, but the first like 2 months world tour that I did with them, because
Mhm.
at the time, let's see, at the time, I wasn't sure if I was gonna like they just hired me for those 6 months and they said, we need to take a hiatus and we may not be a band anymore. Cradle of Filth was going through some serious shit back in 2013.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do my version of the song because I'm bored and I want to work with Spencer and like this is easy. So I just covered it because like there was no version of it anywhere out there that was just like entirely clean vocals. Everybody like always growled Danny's
Hmm.
parts. So I did it and Danny loved it. He was like, this is
Right.
cool. Wow. But then the other guitarist at the time who left us a year later, he was like so mad at me and I'm like, okay, like why? Like
Right.
calm your boots. Like what's the problem? I don't know. There's a reason why they're not in the band anymore. Um attitude is everything. So
Right.
I was like, well, whatever, you can hate me, but you cannot hire me back. But like, I live my own life by my own rules, and I'm not hurting anyone by just covering a song and releasing it online. I made no money off of it. So, anyways, it is what it is. But yeah, I just really wanted to do like a full, clean vocal version of it at my way at the time, just for shits and giggles, honestly.
Right. Absolutely. It sounded completely different from the original, which nothing wrong with that at all. It sounded great. Something I want to get into on that as well. You mentioned that most people that you had on the cover would growl Danny's parts and everything like that. You've mentioned once before that you could not stand Danny Filth's voice when you first heard Cradle of Filth, first started joining them. Um, my wife is the same way. I love Cradle of Filth. She doesn't like Danny's voice. When she heard you, she was like, "Wow," you know.
Oh, tell her thank you.
So I will. But is that still the case where you can't stand Danny's voice?
I still can't stand his voice. I can't hear him on stage. I don't he's not in my in-ear mix on stage. I love him to bits as a person. I do,
Right.
and I love working with him and creating with him, but like hearing that same high-pitched falsetto scream all the time is just like too much for my poor little brain. But it's
Right.
okay. I mean, I admire his voice like when he does some low grumbly bits. I really enjoy
Right.
those. I love the way he sings Honey and Sulfur.
Hmm.
So there's a few tunes that I'm like, yeah, let's hear Danny Filth do his thing. But to this day, I'm like, it's not my cup of tea. He is one of the most unique
Right.
voices in the world, and I've learned about it and helped him preserve it, and it's been fantastic. But at the same time, it's like, I'm sure if I had to listen to any of the voices out there as much as I do, doing like 100 shows a year together, I'd probably get sick of their voice too. I bet the guys are
Right.
sick of my voice. As far as I know, they all have me turned down in their ears because, like, I hit some pretty high notes because I have to, because it's the
Right.
style of music. But yeah, like I get it. It's
Right.
like if you hear it too much, you're gonna get sick of it.
Right. Absolutely. I remember you stating that in an interview with Vin and Sori. Those guys are great.
Yeah.
So I had to ask if that's still the case. And we just, again, with my wife, she can't stand Danny's voice. If we're driving in the car, and Danny starts doing a scream, she's like, "Oh my God, just change it right now." And
So funny. My mom can't stand Danny's voice, but then I put out the song "See the Light," and my
mhm.
mom was like, "Oh, I really like the guttural, which is Zen." And then I just was like, I texted Zen, and I'm like, "Zen, the world's burning. My mom likes her voice. There's something wrong with her." And he's like, "What the hell?" So it was really funny. I understand
Right.
entirely.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, she'll do that in the car. She'll be like, "Turn it down." And one of her favorite songs from Cradle is "Right Wing of the Garden Triptych," because it starts out with that vocal part from you.
Oh,
You
that
know,
makes me happy.
she loves that, and we'll be driving in the car, and she'll actually mouth off the words, and then when it starts into the heavier stuff, she's like, "Okay, skip, skip, skip."
Well, hopefully she can just listen to my album and she doesn't have to do any
Right. She's
skipping.
definitely excited to know that you've got a solo album coming out.
Oh, that makes me so
Um,
happy.
so something else that we wanted to discuss regarding Cradle of Filth is the album Cryptoriana. That's
Mhm.
going on 2 years now, full of touring cycles and promotion. Are there any other plans coming up for Cradle that you can share at this point?
Well, yeah, we have our big show at the Palladium in London on October 19th, and that's a pretty big deal. But really what we're doing is like once these shows are done for this year, we got to get on to writing that next album, which the guys have been really on to getting out their ideas and doing demos right now. So yeah, that's kind of where Cradle's at right now.
Okay. I heard something about Cruelty and the Beast being remastered and live album. Are any of those rumors true at all?
We're doing our best to push those things forward, but it's Danny's band and Danny's words. So unfortunately, I know where it's at, but I can't like legally confirm anything. But yeah, if just follow like Cradle's social media and Danny's social media, and he'll let the world know when it's time, because that's his baby and he's got to do that,
Right, absolutely. We can respect that as well. Now you joined Cradle of Filth in 2013. In that time, again, you've had a lot of things happen for you. One of them being a character based on you named Schoolcraft for Beelzebub's comic album, Parthenon of the Nightside Gods. What was that experience like to have a comic book movie character after you? You actually lended your vocals on 4 tracks of that same album as well.
It's so crazy. It's like a dream come true. When the illustrator and creator, JP, got a hold of me and said, like, hey, I want to do a character based on you, I was like, what? Like, what? Like, you could choose so many bigger, more suitable names. Like, why do you want me? But we'd become friends, and we share a very common tortured artist humor, and yeah, I was really honored, and it's just been such a wild ride. And I fit in my vocal tracking last year around so much going on at the time, because I just wanted this dream to come true so badly, and it did. And I'm looking forward to Schoolcraft making like more appearances in the comic book, and yeah, it's just so cool. I love that comic. I think Beelzebubs is such a unique and cool comic book style. They finally made it to my local comic book store here in Oshawa. I was very, very proud Mama Schoolcraft moment and see the boys doing so good. So yeah, it's I'm very honored. JP's a very cool person, and Beelzebubs is a really unique and beautiful comic, in my opinion.
Right, absolutely. That actually leads us to our fan question. As you know, I did a contest for our first interview.
Right.
Whoever could guess one of the Cradle of Filth lyrics and finish that out, which, by the way, was Blackest Magic in Practice. We were going to go ahead and get a question for you from them. And our winner that got back to me and could actually send me his question, I know I'm going to screw this up, but his Twitter tag is El Hio de Lucha Argon.
All right.
I'll put it on the video. So that way you can give him a proper shout and everything. But this question fit right into where I was going to ask that. In the Beelzebub song, Nuns in the Purgatory, it sounds like you're singing in another language to him, possibly Latin.
Yeah.
What other languages have you tried to sing in and would love to learn to sing in?
Yeah, it is Latin. And some other languages I've sang in, like through my opera training, I've sang in French, Italian, German, Romanian, and Latin. And yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with just those languages. If I do sing in any other styles in the future, I will continue with Romanian and Latin. They're both kind of similar, related. I do write a lot of Gregorian or Orthodox chant for, Antiqva. So that's a possibility in the future, definitely.
Hey, you gave me the right pronunciation of the band name, so now I know how to pronounce it too. And you speak a lot more languages than I thought you were going to say. So
I don't speak them fluently. I can understand a little bit of German. Like I can listen to someone speaking German and understand quite a bit of it, because my Oma and Opa, that was their native tongue. And my mom can speak fluent German. I wish I could, but I learned the language of music instead.
Right.
So that was my thing. But yeah, I mean, you can just kind of fake it and like learn from someone who speaks the language and just make sure your pronunciation is okay, and you can fake anything.
Right. Absolutely. So now we're just going to go ahead and get to know you a little better. We're approaching the end of the interview. We just found some stuff on your various pages. We'd like to get to know you a little bit better.
Sure.
So what was the very first rock or metal album you ever owned?
Oh boy, I gotta think about this one. Probably Spit by Kitty when I was like in grade 9. I still
Right.
have it.
I do know you have said that before as well. That was your first introduction to metal. Wasn't sure if that was the first one you ever owned.
It was
So,
given to me. So like I didn't go out and purchase it. Like I'd say the first one that I went out and purchased was probably Chevelle's album, The Song with the Red on it. That was like the first one I went out and purchased.
okay. Absolutely. That's a great song too. I remember hearing that in high school for the first time. And it had already been out for a few years, and I was like, okay, all right. And then that chorus kicked in, and I was like, okay, yeah, add. Gotta
Yeah.
love it.
So good. So
yeah,
good.
absolutely. Now, do you have a favorite song that you play live? It can be with Cradle of Filth or with a guest appearance or anything like that.
You know, I love doing Honey and Sulfur live with Cradle, but one of my favorite people to sing live with, and we've sang together quite a few times, is there's a band out here in Canada, like very bluesy dark rock band called Darkstone Crows, and their singer Elle is just like a powerhouse on vocals, and I've sang live with her a few times, and she's just I love singing with her, so she's like definitely my favorite person to sing live with,
Now,
definitely.
correct me if I'm wrong, but Darkstone Crows. I believe I came across a solo song of yours with them,
Yeah,
Concrete.
Concrete. Yeah, Elle
Yeah.
sings on that song with me.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So definitely check them out if you've never heard of them.
Yeah, you might really like them. If you like Alice in Chains and like Stevie Nicks, you'll definitely like Darkstone Crows.
Absolutely. Sounds great. Great bands. Alice in Chains currently on tour with Korn right now. And I went to see the Knotfest Roadshow, which you said you've seen, and then found out that 2 days later, Korn was rolling through with Alice in Chains. And I was like, oh.
Oh, my wallet.
Yeah, exactly. Now, on your biography on the Cradle of Filth website, you listed Repo the Genetic Opera as one of your favorite movies.
It is.
That is actually one of my favorite movies as well.
Oh,
so
that makes me so happy. I love that movie.
So my question from that is, who is your favorite character if you have one from the film?
Well, it's obviously the
ever
grave
tried
robber.
to cover what's
like,
that?
It's obviously the grave robber. Duh.
Absolutely. Have you tried to cover any songs from the movie?
I would love to, especially Zydrate Anatomy. So maybe it'll be like a thing in the future where I just do that little section live for shits and giggles. But yeah, I love that movie so much.
Right. Absolutely. That's a great movie. I remember a friend of mine in high school, Allie. Allie, if you're watching, thank you so much for suggesting that movie to me. She was like, have you seen that movie? I was like, no. And I went home. She actually lended it to me in high school. And I was like, what is this? You know?
Right.
It's so different and so cool. And then I found out that I can't remember the guy's name.
Terrence Zudnik, yeah.
Yeah, but it was the other guy. He actually did the Saw movies and all that. And I was like,
is this Sar Hendelman?
It may have been.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is not Saw at all, you know. I had seen those movies and didn't like them, you know. I thought they were too much of gore, not enough story, you know. So
yeah, I was like, I don't like the Saw movies either.
Right. So when I saw this and it was different and had a story and it had the songs and, you know, I was like, wow, that's something so new to me.
Right.
So in your time with Cradle of Filth, do you have a favorite memory, funny memory story so far that you can share that of your time with the band?
You know, some of my favorite memories is discovering Taiwan with the guys, Singapore, Paris, and France. Like we've had a lot of fun adventures together across the globe. But more so like the performances, you know, playing Vakken has always been memorable. And you know, sometimes it's cool. Like we've been this lineup for 5 years and we genuinely like spending time together. And you know, there's one night I'll never forget. We were in Montreal and we were down backstage for like 2 hours late at night after the show because they hadn't closed down the building yet. And we were all just standing around in the room talking for like 2 hours. And that really was something. I'm like, wow, you know, and I hear these stories of like other established bands and like these people don't talk to these people don't get along, there's consistent fighting. And with us, it's just like such a chill family vibe, and I'm very grateful for that, because like I hear these other stories and I'm like, oh my god, like I would have quit by now if we were anything like X, Y, and Z, and all their fighting and problems and segregation that they have going on, you know. So I really like, I really enjoy those guys and touring the world with them, and I just love spending time with them.
Right. Absolutely. Now, you mentioned that a lot of other bands fight and everything. I know you said you had bands in the past that did not go very far because of creative differences and all kinds of different such and such. Now, as far as any of that kind of mentality, did you have any kind of fear of that with joining Cradle at all?
It was really strange. Like my last band, which was Mary and the Black Lamb, fell apart right when I went solo. Mm-hmm. That's why I went solo, because we were all we weren't in the same mindset. Like, you know, there was different priorities in life, and I'm like, no, this is my full-time job. This is what I'm doing with my life. You're with me or you're not. They weren't. And that's fine. I understand some people want to settle down, get married, buy a house. I get it. I understand entirely. But, you know, I was like, I'll never be in a band again. Like, I don't do well in bands. I'm going to be a solo artist. And then I was like, got the offer for Cradle. I was in university at the time, and I wasn't enjoying university. And I was like, all right, let's do it. This is an opportunity. Let's take it. And then I'm like on the flight to the first show in Mexico, and I'm like, oh no, I joined a band. Oh shit. Like, this is not going to go well. And I really tried to, like, you know, go into it with an open mind, and it turned out okay for me. I mean, we're still here, like, what, 6 years later, 6.5 years later. But it, you know, it was me learning to just, sometimes I'm a very take charge person with like a lot of vision, and that sometimes is a little too much for Danny and the guys. So I just kind of said, okay, I'm here, call me when you need me. I'm going to go put my crazy vision and creativity into my other projects. And that's kind of how we've made our dynamic work, which is good.
Right. Absolutely. Well, do you have anything else to share with your fans, Cradle of Filth fans, or our readers who may not have been familiar with your solo stuff, or Cradle of Filth in particular?
Well, I mean, you know, Cradle is a very different band now, still the same. I mean, you know, the last two albums have been with this lineup. We really tried to bring back the old school vibes. So if you liked old school Cradle, you might like the two new albums. As for my solo stuff, you know, if you're a fan of like Lacuna Coil, Evanescence, Hymn, Nightwish, and Old Within Temptation, you probably really like my solo album. So check that out. And yeah, I mean, follow me on all my social media. I'm always posting something quirky.
Right, absolutely. We're going to go ahead and post Lindsay's Instagram, Twitter handles, her Facebook link, and everything like that. So that way you can keep up with her, keep up with her solo stuff. Martyr comes out October 7th. If you haven't heard any of those tracks, they're all on YouTube, SoundCloud, Bandcamp. You know, check them all out. So thank you so much, Lindsay, for taking your time. We understand you've been very busy, so thank you so much for your time on this interview.
Of course. Thanks for having me.